Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. Let's get to it. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Rob McCarthy. Rob, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
I am super excited for this episode because everybody should get the book. We're going to link to it. Everybody should see your hat. Just for, kids, I'm just going to say F the script, but you know exactly what it is. And I have a feeling this is going to be a fast-paced, awesome episode. Two New Yorkers having a good time. So I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to ask you, now that you've come to the realization that the script is BS, where did that come from? Take me back. Take me to the moment where you're like, nope, what they're selling me, I shouldn't be buying.
When I started to realize that the paychecks weren't coming in as quick as the bills were hitting, and I wasn't happy with the person that I was, because I was I was following along with what society expected me to do. And that was about 7 or 8 years ago. And I had the suit and tie, I had the name on the door, the whole 9 yards. And I decided to step away for a full blue collar life and concentrate on myself and my family.
Do you think that the script is not for everyone, or people just need to realize that it may not be for them? Because I think there's a big difference there.
I think that there is a specific script that's written for everyone. And some people follow a portion of it. Some people follow all of it. The smart ones don't follow it and write their own way. We are, the normal routine: go to high school, go to college, get the debt, buy your car, get the debt, have a mortgage, get the debt. By the time you're done, you've got the puppet masters pulling all the strings and you're paying interest on your life.
And heaven forbid something that they don't write in the script or something that's not written in the script happens to you.
You don't know what to do.
You're finished. Worse than that, I think it's worse than you don't know what to do. I think you're finished. I think that one of the biggest challenges we have is lenders don't give debt. Generally, traditional lenders don't give debt that a person theoretically cannot absorb at that moment that they take it.
Right.
But the moment that the script is different than what you and the lender thought, you're cooked. And I mean that seriously.
Well, think about it. A very weird fact. I happen to do factual research on some numbers when I started putting together the book. Do you know that 60% of people in the United States could not immediately address a $400 emergency expense without going into some sort of debt?
I 400 is a shocking number to me. I speak about this all the time because I'm in the insurance and risk management business. And so I talk about the ability to pass off that risk of a shot that a person can't afford to absorb for the sake of a determined and predictable monthly expense. Right. That's what insurance is. But the amount of people that I speak to, and by the way, I think that as I said, the 400 is a shocking number, but I'll tell you what I think is even more shocking, because yes, America is in a place where I can actually wrap my head around what you just said. What's incredibly shocking are the people who, like what you just said, you opened with your story, that have the job, that theoretically everything is lined up, and at their scale, they can't absorb what some would call the predictable outcome. Something, when you buy the house and you take the debt, something in your house is going to go wrong.
Correct.
Fact.
It's a cycle.
Today, something's going to happen. Boiler, roof, leak, kid's going to overflow the toilet. Something's going to happen.
Well, one of the problems we have in the society is that most people can't turn around and repair it themselves either.
Right. And by the way, I talk about this. You're literally like, you're playing right into all my pitches here. This should just be about insurance for the first time, but it's not. And then you get robbed in the middle of the night because the people are so flustered that they have a minor leak. And the guy who's willing to come at the middle of the night is going to rob them for 3x because he knows that they have no idea what he's talking about or what they can do.
Oh, the second you call off hours, you're paying $750 for them to walk in your door.
So where do people go wrong? You've done all the research. Take us there, because the people who listen to Keep Hustling want to. So we're going to set the stage a little bit. We haven't done this in a little while. The lifestyle, the mindset, the motivation that we're building here at Keep Hustling is simple. Everybody should be able to define their hustle. Everybody should be able to chase their hustle. My hustle's not your hustle. Your hustle's not my hustle. My hustle's not my wife's, and so on and so forth. Where do people go wrong?
Social media has a gigantic piece of this now in today's society. You go back to the 1950s, post-World War II, that terminology of keeping up with the Joneses came about. You had to worry, your neighbor pulled into the driveway with the Cadillac. The neighbor got new siding on their house. This neighbor put up a fence, and you started keeping up with the Joneses in your neighborhood or in your close circle. Well, now keeping up with the Joneses has turned into keeping up with every asshole that has a cell phone and is posting stuff that's not even true. So we've stopped going from a society that was save first to a society that doesn't even save and actually spends more than they have because they're too busy comparing themselves with everyone. And you look at the people on social media, 10,000 people on social media, two of them have the wealth that they show. But we compare ourselves with them on a daily basis by doom scrolling. And by thinking less of ourselves, we wind up financing our own worth because we feel that if we wear the Balenciaga shirt and we wear the $300 Nikes, we're suddenly a better human being than if we were just kind and generous emotionally to people instead of worrying about what we're wearing and what we're driving and buying houses that we can't afford.
It's crazy you say that because I was thinking about this the other day. I was having a conversation with someone about a competitor of mine. And this guy always, whenever he does any sort of, he takes any sort of trip, business, anything like that, every single thing he does is luxurious. Like coming to the city from his office, he's in the back of a Maybach. And I'm like, God, how the heck is this guy so successful that he can drive a Maybach, that he can have a Maybach, that he can have a driver, and he can have all that? And somebody says to me the other day, you realize that although it's somewhat expensive, if you own a mildly successful business for a few hours in a day, you can get in New York City a Maybach to drive you from Westchester to the city for a few $100s. Yet you're nowhere near the ability to be able to afford that. And I think you're really onto something in the fact that not only was keeping up with the Joneses was a goal that people had, but it wasn't tied to their happiness. And also it was a generation where people weren't willing to chase keeping up with the Joneses at the sake of or at the risk of everything else. Whereas today, a bunch of uneducated people in a basement somewhere think that they can get to $1 billion, think that they can get to the private jet, when most of the people on the private jet can't even get to the private jet.
But they also think that they can get to that level in 30, 60, 90 days instead of, I on my
Working
podcast,
an hour a day, by the way, working an hour a day.
Right, working an hour a day solely on their cell phone. On my podcast last night, I had a comedian and I was talking to him about the suck that happens when you're building your comedy. And, he said he drove 3 hours to be a 5-minute opener and then drove 3 hours home for $25 just to get on stage. You've got guys on social media and girls on social media now that have gotten a following from ridiculousness that are filling 5,000 seat arenas and we just feed into it.
And by the way, that doesn't mean that the next person could do it.
Correct.
Because I will say the most interesting thing, and I heard this from Mark Cuban, and I've seen this from, I have another billionaire that told me this once. You don't get to be in front of your name without a little bit of luck.
True. But a hell of a lot of hard work.
You can work hard and you can get an M in front of your name.
Right.
But the B is, but yet everybody assumes that they can. Everybody assumes that with less hard work, but even with hard work, that things don't have to fall, and that what ends up happening is when the dominoes don't fall, and I think that this is the most important thing about not following the script is when the dominoes don't fall, then your happiness is tied to that, if that's all that it is.
100% people tie happiness to financial status way too much in today's society. I mean, I live in a very diverse area when it comes to financial standing, and I have, McMansions on one side of me and small 1-bedroom houses on the other side of me. And the people in the 1-bedroom houses, some of which, barely have enough money to make it through the month, are some of the happiest human beings on the planet. And the people that have the money are unhappy because we wind up spending at the level we make. We don't wind up budgeting for the finances that we have. We wind up spending at the level or above the level that we make. You make $100,000, you're spending 120. You make $1 million, you're spending $1.1 million. And it's to the point where debt's not just numbers. It's that feeling in your stomach when you realize that, you're spending more than you have. And half of these people make the minimum payments a month and don't even realize what they're doing to themselves.
Right. Well, that's the evil of credit card debt, but we'll get to that another time. In your bio or in your book, you say the following, and I would love to dig into this part. This book breaks down the BS holding people back and gives them the firepower to own their mistakes, drop the excuses, and write their own story. Can you take us to owning mistakes and dropping excuses, why you think people don't, and how people can finally, if they really want to, get themselves past that? Realizing the mistakes, dropping the BS, and moving forward and hustling.
Okay. First and foremost, you can sit down with a bunch of your friends, have a cocktail, and point out what's wrong with every one of them, right? You have no problem telling somebody they need to lose a few pounds, they need to do this, they need to do that. The hardest person that you ever have to speak to about problems or mistakes that have been made in their life is the person you look at in the mirror every morning. You need to really self-evaluate, because the old adage, if it's not broke, you can't fix it. So if you don't realize the problems that you've had and own your mistakes, and that's an internal thing, that's something that everyone needs to be able to sit down and do. And it starts with detoxing from your bad habits, or for me, it was detoxing from comparison with other people. He has more, she has more, along those lines. Every action and every decision you've ever made become what you are now. And we have a very difficult problem admitting that. Now, the backing away from the excuses side is eliminating every caveat you've ever put on anything in your life. You come home from work, got a ton of crap to do around the house, but you decide that you need a break. Or it's Friday, I'm going to start the diet on Monday. Or this time of year, I'm going to start the diet after the holidays. I'm going to scroll through TikTok for 3 hours because I'm relaxing. All those caveats you throw on things are just ways that you're bullshitting yourself with excuses on a daily basis. And we've gotten to the point where we lie to ourselves so much that we don't even realize what the truth is.
I knew you were going to say something like that. And that is so profound that I think that the hardest thing, to go back to the analogy that you said before about the old days, I think people kind of understood themselves better, understood the challenges better. There was a little bit of blissful ignorance about every other detail. It's kind of like people can diagnose themselves with actual illnesses now because of the internet that don't exist, and then they can get in their own head. And you can do that with finances, you can do that with life, and you can do that with everything else. And yet I feel like that what ends up happening is people build up more and more lies to avoid facing themselves in the mirror. And the question that I think people have to ask is, at what point do they embrace themselves and realize that ultimately that's really what makes the world tick? Are people doing the right thing the right way, and not the excuses, not the hiding, and not all the rest of that? And the problem is that I just don't see how we get out of it. Not to get into a deep philosophical conversation, but the TikTok and the Instagram and those people, they know they're the best psychiatrists and psychologists in the world.
Oh, without a doubt.
And
Every inspirational meme that goes up there is God sent.
So they give you one meme that inspires the person and then destroys them with the algorithm of a bunch of people with $150,000 watches.
But you have to realize the algorithm is never there for your benefit. It's there for your obedience. And that's across the line. The algorithm was made to give you just enough that you keep coming back. Otherwise, it's not profitable anymore. And people take these inspirational quotes and, read them and kind of understand the words that are in them. And shit, all of a sudden later in the day, they think they have self-discipline for half an hour. And it's all lies.
Yeah, but don't you have to start somewhere? Not to be I'm never the positive guy in the room, but don't we have to start somewhere? Don't we have to say that trying to start and trying to do something is better than not?
One choice, one decision, and move one needle a millimeter every day. This is where my favorite quote comes into play, but we'll talk about that in a few. Your whole goal is to move one needle. You went to bed last night at 300 pounds, and you did some work today, and you weighed yourself before bed, and you weighed 299 pounds, 0.6. You're a skinnier person than you were yesterday. You had nothing in savings. You decided not to get your $9 Starbucks coffee that society has told you is the best, which I think is terrible coffee.
Horrible.
And you put that $9 in the savings.
Give me a pour over, baby. This can be a good pour over.
You've actually made yourself a better person financially because you now have $9 in savings. It's one needle, 1 millimeter every day. For me, my first change that I made was a glass of water. I woke up at 4:30 every morning, went into my kitchen and poured myself an ice cold glass of water. And that's how I started my day. And that was my smallest win, but it started that snowball rolling.
Do you think that people don't give themselves credit for the small wins anymore, and that's why?
No, because think about it. Everything you see online is a gigantic win. Hey, I woke up yesterday, I logged on the internet, and I made $900,000 posting something on Etsy. The little stuff doesn't matter to people anymore, and they don't realize that that's what compiles in the positive and the negative.
It's like the pride that the guy used to take in mowing his lawn.
Yeah.
And that was like a win.
Gone. I mean,
and now
we all have
think about this often. I think about this, they're robots. But I think about it all the time now. I try to get my kids to play sports. Not because I was a great athlete. I love sports growing up, but I think that there is something about dropping the pass one time and then catching it the next time. Like there's that moment that no other super defined thing, as you're saying, that moves the needle forward. Last week I didn't hit the shot. This week I did. Which means,
My
by the way, that next week if I miss it, I know that the following week I can. I think that's also one.
my daughter's a Division One lacrosse player. She's in her
Shit.
freshman year. Yeah. And last year during her senior year of high school, she had a 3-pointer with I think 11 seconds on the clock to put her team up by 2 and send them to the sectional semis. And if you ask her, that's one of the greatest experiences of her life because she had learned failure before. And that's one of my biggest things when it comes to the younger generation. You talk about sports, we're same generation for the most part, I'd assume. Do you remember when you had to win to get a trophy?
My mother, she should live and be well, had a practice. We lived in an apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, 87th Street, 2nd Avenue. 3 boys, no girls in the house. Lot of leagues. Participation trophies. My brothers and I talk about it all the time. 20th floor. There's that trash chute that when you're a kid, if you put something at the right angle, that's just the right hard down, you can hear it clinking all the way 20 and then at the bottom, that was participation trophies.
My son
Literally.
got yelled at coming out of probably 3rd or 4th grade football. And we went to the dinner. You know, they do the whole thing. They give the MVP, blah, blah, blah. The team went 0-12 and they gave them trophies. So we're walking out. And my son snaps the top off the trophy and throws it in the dumpster. I was like, that's cool. He goes, we didn't win a game. What the hell are they giving me a trophy for?
And by the way, I don't think that it means that the best way to get those kids inspired is to tell them that they're useless and that they're losers and that they're not going to win anything.
No.
But I think that there's something in there which says, you know, this is a really good, my friends are going to love this. When I was a junior in high school, we won the league championship in the league that I played in, the private school that I played in. And then senior year, not only because it was the end of my career, but I remember as this podcast has made me reflect on a lot of things. We lost in the semifinals and it was so painful. It was so painful. And I remember talking to one of my friends who was on the team afterwards. And what made it so painful was that it was so sweet when we won the year before. It was so awesome. And like for that whole summer, anybody from any one of the schools that were in the league, like we were the guys, we were the people. So that doesn't mean that we didn't, that when you reflect, you say like Aaron was a loser and he didn't accomplish anything and all that hard work wasn't worth it. And you stink and there was no camaraderie and there's nothing in it. But I think that there's something in the fact that, especially in an age when people think that in an hour in their basement, they can make billions of dollars, nobody tries.
Think about it. Why do we know what hot feels like? Because we have cold. If we didn't have cold, hot would be the normal temperature we always live at. You'll never know what it means to truly win if you've never tasted what it feels like to lose.
And if you've never tried, and if you've never really, really tried, because ultimately, I think that I'm really happy with this conversation, by the way. Thank you for coming on again.
Not a problem.
I think ultimately when you try and you succeed, and it could be something small, it could be building that super crazy Lego set, or working for hours and hours. I'm gonna drop something that the Gen Z people are gonna not even know what I'm talking about. A puzzle. When I was a kid, we used to do puzzles.
Oh yeah.
My father used to recipe set a puzzle board, and we could leave it overnight with a piece of glass over it and come in the morning. And was there a sicker feeling than when you're on your way out the door, you remember a piece that just came together in your head, and you drop it you fill it in right before you go to school, and you dream of finishing your homework, not to just play video games, which you did plenty of, but to finish the puzzle. And even that, which is not life-altering significance, it's not hundreds and hundreds of hours. It could be 2-3 hours of putting your mind to something and doing it, I think has a lot of subconscious motivation and power so that when the next thing comes, you feel like you can.
Well, think about the mentality. There was a cartoon in I forget what magazine I was reading, and it was a father and a son walking away, and the kid's holding a trophy in his hand. And it was a first place trophy. You saw the red; it said first place down in front of the trophy. And the dad's quote is, "Hey son, you did a great job this year. I'm happy you worked so hard." And the son's looking at the father saying, "Why do I have to work so hard? The kid in 8th place got a trophy too." So you're going to get the reward without the effort. And sooner or later, I that high school to college transition for my daughter broke her ass in order to become a Division I athlete. People that didn't do that and athletes that didn't do that don't deserve the same reward. And we're giving it to them as young kids, which is forcing them to think that no matter how hard you work or how little you work, you're going to wind up with the same result. And that's the product of it.
And by the way, I don't think that working 60 hours a week is for everyone.
Not at all.
I think that, but a person should realize that if they don't work, you can live on a farm with a couple of animals in a cabin with your fireplace, or I've spoken about this before on the podcast. I've gone down YouTube rabbit holes of these van lifers. I'd love to get some of them on the podcast. And like everybody dreams of a big house, and these people just want like a 600 square foot van with a with a composting toilet.
But that's part of the script.
But what I'm saying
Their
is,
success is different than what your success is or my success.
but they were able to define it, and that's where they find the happiness, and then they build the way that they can get to that, knowing that by living on the road, I'm not going to be able to have this job, so therefore I'm not going to make $300,000 a year, make up a number. But if I define where I want to be and how I want to be and what makes me happy, what keeps me going every single day productively, isn't that better than the person who's running themselves into the ground unproductively?
Yeah.
Isn't it? If
100%.
everybody, and that's what keep hustling is, it's if everybody found their script and not someone else's script, the story of the world would be better. Wow, that was super profound.
It was good. It was
Wow.
good.
I don't know what's going on with me today.
One of the things I talk about in the book is planning in reverse. Instead of saying, all right, this is going to be my first step on how I'm going to get where I think I want to be, figure out where you want to be and then back yourself into it. We all think about where we're going to start, and we have no idea where we actually want to finish.
When no one else is around. When no one
Correct.
else is around. Here, where we want to finish.
As a person, where I want to finish, you want to finish, anybody wants to finish themselves, because your final outcome may be 110% different than mine. Listen, my perfect finale of my movie is on a golf course every morning with my son, just playing around a golf and coming back and relaxing with my wife and daughter and enjoying the day. I don't need the yacht and the helicopter and the private plane and all that other stuff. It's just everybody has their own definition of success. You just have to figure out what it is.
I got to ask you one other super pointed question about your book.
Sure.
What is the biggest lie that the self-help world sells us? Because all things lead in this conversation to don't follow the money, follow the self-help people. Don't chase the fake people, chase the gurus that sell the coaching plans and life is great and self-help and memes. So what's the biggest lie?
The self-help community, the real self-help community, these people that are speaking from their podium down upon you, they're just handing you a different script. They're handing you their script and telling you this is how it should be done.
So real self-help
does everything.
Helps you get to your script.
Real self-help gives you their script. They tell you how they did it.
No, I'm saying the correct self-help, what the BS that you shouldn't be taking from them is the person or the environment that helps you find your script.
Nothing should be in control of you except yourself, your own emotions, your own feelings, and your own dreams. You shouldn't follow the Instagram script, the self-help script. No one has it all figured out. And if they do, the people that are these big self-help gurus, they figured out their script, but now they're feeding it to you as the Bible. And this is how it needs to be done.
Do you think we have a chance?
110%, because I'll tell you right now, mentally, financially, emotionally, I was probably one of the most screwed up individuals I've ever met in my life until about 6 or 7 years ago. And now I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror to brush my teeth, and I can actually smile at myself for the first time because I've actually taken a step back, self-reflected on what I was doing, and started to write my own story, started to write my own script. And now I don't give a damn what anybody else thinks about me. If you like me, spectacular. If you don't like me, there's the door. But I've started to realize that I am the most important person in my own life. And I never realized that. I think it was one of the things that was probably going to put me in a grave at a young age from a heart attack, because I was running myself rampant for somebody else.
And by the way, the best way to be the best person for those around you, spouses, kids, family, is to figure out the best version of yourself.
110%. I was a shell.
It's selfish, but not selfish at the same time.
I was physically present in everything I did with my family, but my mind was always floating somewhere else with my stress.
Love that. Rob, thank you again for being here.
It was my pleasure.
Super awesome conversation. Glad we made this happen. As you know, we have a closing tradition on this podcast where we ask our guests to leave us with their favorite motivational or inspirational quote. You alluded to it before. And so with that, I'm going to say, Rob McCarthy, thank you again for being here. Everybody should buy the book in the script, buy the book in the notes below. Check out Rob, check out what he's doing, because I was inspired today and I hope you were as well. And with that, Rob, I'll turn the floor back over to you.
The one inspirational quote that means the most to me and actually changed me was Jordan Peterson's one of my favorite public speakers. The only person that you ever need to compare yourself with is the person who laid their head on your pillow the night before. And if you've made an improvement, you're a better person.
And that's exactly what Keep Hustling is about. This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good. And of course, and always, keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. The listeners are the most important part of this show. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more listeners. Plus, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We have some amazing guests and topics lined up for you, and we don't want you to miss out. And finally, if you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod on Instagram, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you to continue the conversation. Thanks again for tuning in and supporting our podcast. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.